Hey everyone, welcome back to Fiction Flux. I'm thrilled to have you with us today as we dive into an epic crossover adventure. Ever wondered what would happen if Izuku Midoriya, the aspiring hero from My Hero Academia, swapped his quirk for Spidey powers? That's right, today we're exploring a thrilling what-if scenario where Deku becomes Spider-Man. Get ready to swing through a web of new possibilities as we uncover how this unique fusion of heroes could change the game. So buckle up and stay tuned until the end. Let's begin. Izuku Midoriya had wanted to be a hero more than anything else in the world, taking inspiration from every pro-hero he saw. But one pro-hero had more of his attention than any other. All Might, the #1 hero. The man who fought without fear and announced to the world, "I am here." That's why, when young Izuku woke up only to find out he was stuck to his bed sheets after standing, he was ecstatic. Then he slipped. "Mom, I did it," Izuku screams as he peels himself off the floor. Inko Midoriya rushes into the room, immediately assessing the situation. "What's wrong, baby? Are you hurt?" she asks as she tries to pry him from the floor and fails completely. "Give mommy a minute. I'll use my quirk to pull the sheet off." She uses her power to attract small objects to pull his blanket towards her. A bead of sweat rolls down her face as she attracts the blanket. Slowly but surely, Inko manages to pull the blanket off the floor. Izuku is still stuck to the bottom of the blanket, and he's laughing. "I have a quirk. I have a cool quirk." "Honey, try turning off your stickiness. Then we'll go to the doctor and get this figured out," Inko says while whipping the sweat off her face. Izuku concentrates for the next 10 minutes and falls on his feet. "This is so cool. I get to be a hero like All Might," Izuku says, while rocking back and forth in his seat. The door opens and a bald man with round glasses and a lab coat walks in. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asks with a calming voice. "Remarkable. Highly advanced adhesive abilities and super strength. Let's see if an X-ray and blood sample will reveal anything else." As the doctor grabs the syringe and brings it closer to Izuku's arm, he begins feeling a weird buzzing in his head and yanks his arm back. "Leave me alone," Izuku says with a voice that isn't human as a green substance crawls over Izuku's face, forming a mask with a white mouth and black sharp teeth. "What is that?" Inko screams. One hour later, the doctor came back and explained what he had seen. "Apparently, there is a green sludge thing in the arm we were about to draw blood from, and it is constantly moving underneath the skin. It changed positions twice over the course of an hour. Once it moved out of the arm, he was able to see an unnatural object in his wrists that looks like a spinneret and a slit in the palm of his hands." "Let me try something," Izuku interrupts as he focuses on his right hand and flicks his wrist. Thwip, a thin string of something shoots out of his wrists, hitting a paper on the wall. He yanks his arm back. The paper flies across the room and lands in his hand. The doctor pokes the web with a finger and immediately pulls back with a jolt. "It shocked me. You have electric webs. This is amazing, spectacular. If these webs get stronger, you might be able to use these to knock out villains and restrain them," the doctor says while jotting down notes. On the way home, Izuku has been uncomfortable for the past 10 minutes. Every time a car horn goes off, the sound makes his insides start to feel like they're being punched. The next day, I love this agility and my stick empowers," Izuku says while hanging upside down on one of the park tree's branches. He pulls on his hand to get it off the tree branch, but he ends up pulling the branch off instead. Izuku starts falling, and he tries shooting a web at the other branch, but the web snaps immediately. Izuku falls face first into the ground and breaks his nose. When he pulls his face off the ground, he realizes that the green thing from yesterday is moving behind his nose, and suddenly his nose stops bleeding. Izuku runs back home to show his mom his broken nose. Izuku notices that he is moving much faster than a boy his age should be able to, but doesn't realize that his nose has already repaired itself until he gets home. The start of elementary school. Izuku is 6 years old at this point. His green eyes have gotten darker, and his messy hair has gotten much messier. "Okay, class, come to the front and introduce yourselves," the white-haired teacher with yellow eyes and a dark skin tone announces. Izuku quickly pulls out his quirk analysis book to write down what he hears. When it's Izuku's turn, he gets up and tells the class his name, but chooses not to tell them everything his quirk can do. "My quirk is called Wall Crawler. It allows me to stick to anything with any part of my body. I'm also capable of shooting electrically charged spider webs that are super sticky from my wrist spinnerets," Izuku says while pointing at the bulges in his wrists, shocking his teacher with his big words and simultaneously confusing his classmates. "Lame. You're just a freaky spider," one of the kids with yells from the back, says the guy who's wearing a metal face mask because he has a mouth full of acid spit. "At least I can kiss a girl without melting her face off," Izuku fires back immediately. "What girl would kiss a spider boy? Your breath probably smells like insects," one of the girls in the middle of the room shouts. This girl has a quirk that allows her to shoot water from her hands. "Okay, this ends now. Midoriya, you can sit down now," the teacher interrupts. Izuku walks to his seat, making sure to walk past both of the people who dissed him. As he passes by the girl, he taps her shoulder, giving her a tiny shock, and she lets out a sound of surprise. "Shut up before we rip out your tongue and shove it up yours," Izuku says before abruptly shutting his mouth with a blush on his cheeks. He quickly shuffles past the boy with the face mask, and a green web rips it off. This causes all of the spit inside to fall on the desk, and it quickly melts through it and the floor. Luckily for the boy, they are on the first floor, and the school has no basement. The teacher sends the boy to the principal's office, and Izuku sits down while pondering what just happened. "I still have no idea how to stop my symbiote, from taking over my voice and acting on its own as that green creature. Can't too," connected the symbiote says in broken English. "You still can't talk in complete sentences," Izuku sighs, as he realizes that he'll need to teach his symbiote how to speak. "Weak. Brain access hard. Assimilate info," the symbiote responds. "You can't access my brain yet. But you need to access my brain in order to learn speech faster." "Yes," the symbiote answers. "You should have said that when you started talking last year." "I'm sorry," the symbiote apologizes, prompting Izuku to rub his thumb over the spot where the symbiote resides. Izuku sits quietly for a few minutes before a thought comes to his mind. "You need a name." "Venom," the symbiote suggests. "Sounds evil." "Carnage." "Villain." "Toxin." "No." "Scream." "You hate sound." "Mayhem." "Not heroic." "Salvation." It's halfway through the school year, and Izuku still hasn't made any new friends. They all avoid him because he's super smart, and he doesn't let them copy his work. Plus, his powers keep acting up, and he ends up causing property damage every other day. Whether he was sticking to his desk and pulling it apart accidentally, he was accidentally firing electric webs when he moved his wrists and pulled parts of the wall out, making the wires in the wall get short-circuited. Then there's the time that he accidentally caused a school-wide power outage by touching the fuse box. Luckily for his mother, The school never fined them for damages. Every day just seemed to blur by, and neither Izuku nor Katsuki could tell you why. Izuku was the smartest student in class, but Katsuki was definitely the most popular because of his flashy quirk. This meant that they would inevitably drift apart due to Katsuki's new fame. The supersized ego from all the praise didn't help either. Katsuki was hailed as the next All Might by student and teacher alike. The final straw was when Katsuki uttered the name Deku, after Izuku refused to fight back and lost. Despite all this, Izuku didn't care. All that mattered was getting stronger, strong enough to surpass All Might. He spends most of his days training in secret, drawing designs for his future costume, and writing about quirks in his notebook. But not even Izuki's spider sense could warn him about what was to happen next. A loud voice shakes the building and sends Izuku to the floor while holding his ears. "Present Mike, the man who uses my hard counter." Izuku thinks to himself as he picks himself up. "Can kill him?" Salvation asks. "No." Present Mike yells louder. "I'll think about it." Yay, Salvation responds before screaming after another sound burst. The entire school 350 people rushes outside to see who's talking. "Good morning, students. This is Present Mike coming to you live with an important announcement. Today, I'll be helping you with your basic quirk training. My bosses decided that interacting with kids at a younger age would decrease the number of accidental deaths and future villains. Other heroes have been dispatched to other schools for the same reason. But you guys are lucky enough to get the one and only voice hero. Present Mike. Can I get a yeah? Yeah, the entire school screams, nearly sending Izuku back to the floor. You win this round, Present Mike, Izuku whimpers, while pushing his hands against his ears harder, hoping to turn down the volume. The end of the day. Training was really intense for Izuku. Once Present Mike figured out that he had more stamina than his entire school, Izuku was tasked with doing more than anyone else. While other kids had to run a mile, Izuku would run 4. When the other kids were tasked with doing 20 push-ups, Izuku did 50 with Present Mike sitting on his back. Then it came time for quirk training, and this is where Izuku struggled the most. He was tasked with dragging Present Mike around the school by using his webbing without shocking him. This had 2 purposes: strengthening his webbing and teaching him how to control his electrical output. Did I forget to mention that whenever Izuki's webs snapped, or he started to complain, Present Mike would yell cheesy motivational quotes like, "No pain, no gain," and "plus ultra." By the 6th quote, Salvation was ready to gag him with webbing. By the 40th quote, Izuku was happy to follow through with Salvation's idea. This led to Izuku learning how to shoot balls of webbing at Present Mike. Unfortunately, the voice hero dodged every web shot. Izuku wouldn't wonder where they landed until he got home. This past annoying, Salvation says, as Izuku finishes his 12th lap. "Faster," Present Mike screams, causing Izuku to cringe. "I'd be faster if I wasn't carrying a 200-pound man who makes me weaker every time he opens his mouth." Izuku snaps, accidentally going back to taser mode. "Yiyuowich," Present Mike screams, and Izuku falls unconscious. "Oops," Present Mike thinks to himself as he tries to pull the webs off his chest, only to find that he can't, and his hand is stuck to it. That's a problem. Present Mike tries to detach the web by running away until it gets pulled off. But he gets yanked back after a certain distance. He picks up a stick and tries to break the web, but the stick gets stuck. He uses sticks to start a fire and burn the webs, but it has no effect. If only he knew that Izuki's father passed down flame resistance to his son. He keeps trying stuff like this for an hour, until Aizawa comes by. "Quit playing around," he says before yawning in his hand. "This web isn't coming off," Present Mike screams, still running around. "Fine," Aizawa says before his black eyes turn red. He activated erasure. The webs fall off of Present Mike's chest and his hand is freed. Present Mike picks up Izuku and carries him to the principal's office in order to find his address. Once the address is found, Present Mike and Aizawa take him home, sneaks through the window, and sits him on his bed. They vacate the premises, and Aizawa lets out a yawn. "This is all your fault, Hizashi. I could be sleeping at home right now. But you just had to volunteer me for basic quirk training. You know you had fun teaching the kiddies. Fine, but you're never talking me into teaching again. XXXXXXXXXX. I'll make one." What happened to the web shots? A green-haired man with blue eyes is currently down on one knee, engagement ring box open, exposing a beautiful ring made of gold, with diamonds and rubies embedded in it, her favorite gems. "Will you marry me?" he asks, and the woman begins to shout yes over and over again. Splat! The engagement ring and box gets smacked by a gray substance and stuck to the street. A second later, and one of the web shots sticks his knee to the ground, while another covers his eyes. Moments later, the blonde woman gets her eyes hit too. They were stuck there for 6 hours until the webs finally let go. But the ring was long gone along with a chunk of the wall. I'll make two. Rejected quirk ideas part 1 inch. My son can do what? Inko Midoriya asks the doctor in shock. He can create any type of gem by using his body fat and use them to form constructs. The doctor says once again, while pointing to the boy sitting on an emerald horse. I'm rich, Inko screams as her eyes transform into dollar signs. It's just about time for Izuku's story to truly begin. The story of how Izuku became a hero. So, as third-year students, it's time to start thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with the rest of your lives. I could pass out these career aptitude tests, but why bother? We all know you want to be heroes, despite the fact that some of your quirks are friggin' useless. The teacher mumbles the last part. Like seriously, the guy whose only power is pulling his eyes out of his head believes he can be a hero. Don't mention me in the same breath as those worthless rejects. With their useless quirks, they'd be lucky to become a hero's secretary. You get 3 guesses to decide who said that, but the first 2 don't count. You and your pride are starting to piss me off, Kaken. You think just because you're powerful you have the right to bully, antagonize, and disrespect the people you deem inferior to you. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. You've built up and hid behind this illusion that none of your peers can be better than you. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to destroy your pride by becoming the #1 hero and let you feel the way you've made everyone else. I'm going to grab that illusion you've made and shatter it. Izuku shouts, while his fingers dig grooves into his desk. Izuku's little speech silences the classroom, and his peers wait with bated breath. Katsuki is known to blow a fuse from somebody sassing him. They were afraid to see what an insult would spark. And like they'd feared, Katsuki had become enraged. How dare that useless Deku talk back to me? I'll show him his place, he thinks before screaming, die, as he charges towards Izuku, knocking over everyone in his path. Game over, Izuku thinks to himself as he fires a web at Katsuki's right palm and sparks his electricity across the web, paralyzing that arm. This prematurely sets off the explosion and creates a smokescreen for Izuku to play in. Izuku charges into the smoke and pulls back his right fist in preparation for his finisher. He slams his fist into Katsuki's stomach. The only thing the class sees is Katsuki rocketing out of the smoke and into the wall. They feel a gust of wind that blows the smoke away, revealing Izuku, fist outstretched and a smirk fully on his lips. Your illusion is cracking, Izuku announces before the bell rings. Izuku cracks open the window and jumps out, landing on the ground before rocketing himself to the rooftop across the street. He would take the rooftops home today. His mom is getting home from work late today, so Izuku is going to make dinner himself and make his mom a separate meal when she gets home. Error, error. A woman turns from a smoking computer in shock. Another one? She whines at the smoking computer behind her. The title, Deku Doesn't Get Captured, shocks her even further. How is Izuku supposed to learn from All Might if he doesn't meet him before Yua? She spends the next hour trying to figure out how to fix this. I got it. she declares as she rapidly types into the keyboard. Back to the Spider Deku universe. Izuku is channel surfing while eating his ramen when he lands on the news channel. We're coming to you live from downtown as a sludge monster is holding a junior high student captive within himself. The boy seems to have an explosion-based quirk that's running wild and starting fires. Kamui Woods, Death Arms, and Mount Lady are on the scene to apprehend the villain. But he's impervious to all of their physical attacks, and Kamui Woods risks being set on fire if Backdraft can't extinguish the flames, while Mount Lady is too big to enter the arena. The reporter says as her cameraman zooms in to give the viewers a clear view. Izuku was about to start writing down notes about their abilities and tactics when he sees that the captive is Katsuki Bakugo. Damn it. I can't shatter your illusion if you die too early, Izuku says as he bursts out the door, locking it behind him. He jumps onto a roof and jumps from rooftop to rooftop until he reaches the action. Izuku leaps over Death Arm's attempt at crowd control and lands in front of the sludge villain. You seriously don't want that guy inside of you? You might get indigestion or a disease. Izuku announces his presence and draws everyone's attention to him. Kid, you need to get back, Kamui Wood informs him after landing next to him. Sorry, but that's not going to happen. I'm here to save an asshole, Izuku replies before shooting a web line at Katsuki's exposed torso and pulling on it. This begins a game of tug-of-war that the sludge villain loses badly. When Katsuki is out, Izuku starts shooting balls of webbing at the sludge villain. It's no use, physical attacks can't touch me, the sludge villain says, and Izuku immediately responds. Those webs will shock you, Izuku says before electricity starts to dance across the sludge and heat it up. This hardens the sludge just enough for Izuku to trap him in ordinary webbing. Once this is done, the reporters immediately shove their microphones in front of his face. Izuku answers their questions truthfully until they start asking for his name and other info that he wouldn't like to share with the city. He finds an opening to escape when Death Arms starts guiding civilians away. Izuku is walking down a side street with his eyes closed when he hears a voice. I am here. Izuku opens his eyes and jumps back in shock. All Might was in front of him. All Might was talking to him. Izuku immediately goes into one of his infamous mumble rants. Be quiet. I came to ask you about what happened back there. Why did you jump in to save your friend when pros were doing the job already? All Might interrupts. He isn't my friend. I hate just about everything he believes in. Sigh, but I couldn't just let him die like that. Nobody deserves to be murdered, Izuku says while flashing back to one of his old classmates. He had a quirk that allowed his right hand to negate any quirk it came in contact with, even mutation quirks. Unfortunately, it did nothing to stop ordinary explosions. All Might is left staring in awe at Izuku. He's the one, I'm sure of it. He thinks to himself before making his offer. Inherit my quirk and become the next person to carry the torch. What do you mean inherit your quirk? Quirks can't just be given away. If they could, it would change everything we know about how quirks work, Izuku replies. That's true for every quirk except two. My quirk has that power. Most people like to assume that my quirk is some type of super strength or invulnerability. But that isn't true. My quirk stockpiles power from one user and passes that power on to the next. That user refines the power and adds to it until they choose a successor. I'm the 8th user, and should you accept my offer, you'll be the 9th, All Might whispers into Izuku's ear. Sure, I'll accept your power. But you have to explain why you only work 3 hours a day. Izuku agrees. How do you know how long I work? All Might asks with a small hint of fear in his voice. The internet. The fans of Pro Heroes have a website that tracks everyone's work hours and shows how they changed over time since their debut. Why do you think villains with fire quirks mainly commit crimes, while Kamui Woods is active and ice quirks vanish at noon? When Endeavor starts patrolling, Izuku explains. Fine, I'll tell you why, but you have to keep it a secret. All Might agrees before telling the story of his battle against All for One and explaining who he is. This Saturday, meet me at Dagaba Beach, he says before jumping away. Saturday. Why are we here? Izuku asks as he shoots webbing at his nose to block out the stench. All Might immediately responds. We're here to strengthen your body, so that transferring one for all into your body won't kill you instantly. I'm already strong, just look at this. Izuku replies before walking over to a refrigerator and lifting it with one hand, causing All Might to choke on his spit. Incredible, he says before asking how he's so strong, but so small. My quirk gives me the traits of a spider, which includes the ridiculous strength that spiders have, the speed, agility, spinnerets, and some abilities the doctor couldn't quite explain. Oh yeah, I also have a living organism inside of me, Izuku says as he shows him each ability. What does the organism do? All Might asks with that giant smile on his face. As it is now, it can make and shoot its own webbing, make pants out of itself, and play around with my body's anatomy, Izuku explains as his cheeks turn pink. How strong are the webs you make? All Might questions. They can hold 10 times my body weight, Izuku responds after doing some math. What about me? Salvation asks. He didn't ask about you. Meanie. He doesn't know any better, Izuku whispers, while rubbing the symbiote. Did he forget I'm still here? All Might thinks to himself as he pulls out a hair and shoves it into Izuku's face while screaming, Eat this. No. Why? When was the last time you washed your hair? Yesterday morning. Did you put something in your hair afterwards? Yes. I'm not putting that in my mouth. You need to consume my DNA in order to gain one for all. Salvation, take care of this. Fine. But you owe me. A green tendril shoots out of Izuku's mouth and snatches the hair. The tendrils wraps around the hair and retreats back into Izuku's body. What was that? My symbiote. What did it do? It's currently analyzing the hair and removing the hair products. Once that's done, it'll deposit the hair into my stomach for digestion. That's cool. Give me a second, Izuku says before that tendrils returns and deposits a glob of hair grease onto the ground. You used too much grease, Izuku informs him. Clean the beach while you wait for one for all. All Might tells Izuku, while writing down, use less hair grease. It took an hour to clean that beach. Izuku would attach web strings to as many pieces as garbage as possible, pull them close together and web them up. Once that was done, he would pick up the garbage ball and toss it into the garbage truck. Done. Salvation says moments before green electricity arcs across Izuku's body. Good, now clench your cheeks, plant your feet, and scream. Smash. Smash, Izuku screams as he punches the air, creating a gust of wind and splitting the ocean. All Might watches from the sidelines with a look of pride on his face. Izuku has a smile on his face, which quickly vanishes once the pain kicks in. You should have warned me that my arm would break, Izuku screams, but All Might isn't sure whether it's from pain or anger. I kind of forgot that fact. It's been decades since I acquired and mastered one for all. Plus, I never had to deal with the recoil for some reason, All Might reveals while rubbing the back of his head. My teacher is an idiot, Izuku thinks, as his arm hangs limp at his side. Give me 5-10 minutes. Salvation states as he slinks from Izuku's head to his broken right arm. In 10 months, the entrance exams begin. Every Saturday until then, I'll train you and teach you how to hold back. All Might states before running after the 3 police cars that just flew by. 10 months later. You ready for this? Salvation asks, his excitement easy to see. As long as I don't have to meet Present Mike again, I'll be fine, Izuku responds, eager to get in there and kick ass. Izuku looks to his right and sees a girl with brown hair trip. Izuku vanishes in a blur and reappears behind her. Then he sticks his right hand to her back. and she immediately stops. "I think you dropped something," Izuku jokes, as he picks her up with one hand. "Thanks for the save. Falling before a big event is a very bad omen," she says before telling him that her name is Ochako Yororaka. She turns around, revealing that her eyes are also brown, and tells him, "Good luck." Izuku Midoriya. "Good luck on the practical exam," Izuku tells her before they walk into the buildings. They walk into a giant classroom to take the written exams and come back out an hour later. "How do you think you did on the written portion?" Ochako questions Izuku as soon as they leave the room. "I aced it. Yawn, I've been studying hero tactics and quirks since I learned what a hero was," Izuku says before grimacing at how that made him sound like a super nerd. "Cool. I struggled a little bit." Question 39 asked how I'd use my quirk to save a hostage being held at gunpoint. But my quirk isn't suited for that scenario. Gravity allows me to make objects ignore the effects of gravity after I touch them. That isn't very helpful for this type of scenario. So I had to get super creative with rocks and discarded clothing articles, Ochako said before they reached their destination. Izuku opens the door and sees someone he hoped to never see again. "Present, Mike," Izuku growls as he and Ochako go to their assigned seats. Izuku's day gets even worse when he realizes that they're grouped by schools, meaning that Izuku Midoriya was sitting right next to Katsuki Bakugo. "Welcome, young heroes. It's the one and only Present Mike coming to you live from the UA entrance exams. Can I get a hell yeah?" Silence. By this point, Izuku is forced to put his head down on the desk. Today, the name of the game is Urban Combat. All applicants will be transported to one of 4 facilities designed to recreate an urban area. You're separated from your classmates too, so no teaming up with friends. Once there, you'll be tasked with racking up points by beating robots. These robots come in 3 varieties: 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. Present Mike screams before getting interrupted by a question. "Sir, the pamphlet clearly shows that there are 5 robots. If this is a typo, it is a very big stain on UA's reputation. And you," he turns around to point out Izuku with his head down. "If you're going to sleep through the instructions, you might as well go home. This school isn't a place for slackers." This makes Izuku's bad mood worse, and he almost snaps. "Mind your own business. It's not my fault that my quirk gives me a weakness to extremely loud noises. If the world didn't insist on giving us the loudest hero, I'd have been perfectly fine today." "Hey, you're that little dude from way back," Present Mike shouts after remembering his face. But anyways, the other 2 robots are nearly identical, except for 2 things. One is a 0-pointer obstacle, and the other is a whopping 100 points. You can't tell the difference, so you might as well run from both. And also, the 100-pointer is made from a metal that has minor shock absorption as a built-in function. The applicants are transported to their facilities, and Izuku can't help but wonder how UA's budget is big enough to allow 4 giant cities. He sees a nervous Ochako a little further ahead, and he goes to talk to her, but a hand grips onto his shoulder. It's that same guy with glasses who called him out earlier. "Are you trying to sabotage that girl? She's clearly trying to concentrate." He almost yells, "Don't touch me. Did it ever cross your mind that I know her? Or that I'm trying to comfort a girl that is clearly nervous?" Izuku growls out before smacking the guy's hand off of his shoulder and walks toward Ochako, leaving the red-faced man behind. "Calm down, you'll do fine," Izuku says softly, and Ochako becomes slightly less tense. "Thanks, Izuku," she replies before the gates swing open and Present Mike screams, "Go." Izuku picks up Ochako and leaps over the other people, gaining a very large head start between them and the crowd. "Thanks again, best buddy," Ochako says before they go their separate ways to get points. Izuku comes across a 3-pointer and shoots a web string at it, before sending a taser's worth of electricity at it, blowing it up. Next, a group of 1-pointers appear at Izuku smashes the one with a sword arm and tosses the sword arm into the red eye of another 1-pointer. "Sorry to cut in, But I really need to pass, he says before he flips over that one and tosses it into the last two, destroying them with the explosion. Izuku runs up a nearby building and backflips off of it. He shoots a web string at another building and starts swinging around the city. 5 minutes pass with Izuku effortlessly smashing dozens of robots into each other. Then something goes wrong. Izuku's spider sense starts going crazy and 4 giant robot arms smash through a building in front of everyone. "Run away," somebody in the crowd screams. Izuku perches himself on top of a building nearby, and he notices that Ochako's leg is stuck under the rubble in a way that clearly shows she was running away beforehand. To make matters even worse, one of those robots' feet is almost on top of her. What am I going to do now? There's only one way I could stop that robot in time. He thinks, jumping off of his perch and diving at the 50 feet tall robot. No time to regulate the power, so I have to give it 100%. Izuku states before green electricity dances across his right arm. "Leave her alone," he screams as he punches the robot's head and sends the entire thing flying. It destroys 3 of the buildings behind it, before crushing its head against the wall on the other side of the false city. Meanwhile, Izuku is falling to the ground, face first and arm flapping in the wind. As he gets closer to the ground, green webs shoot out of his legs and attaches to the buildings nearby. At the same time, Ochako slaps Izuku's face to activate zero gravity. Seeing that Izuku is fine, Salvation releases the webbing and Ochako pulls Izuku into her lap. She cancels zero gravity and vomits behind the rubble. "Time's up," President Mike yells as all the robots shut down. An elderly lady starts walking through the city giving out gummy bears that decrease fatigue and starts treating the injured by kissing their wounds. When she reaches our duo, she's shocked at the sight of Izuku's arm. It's healing before her very eyes. Sure, it's slow, but it isn't hard to notice cuts being stitched shut by a green tendril, and then the tendrils vanish, leaving behind flawless skin. "Let me fix up your ankle, then I'll work on his arm," she tells Ochako. "Did you remember to floss?" Inko Midoriya questions as her son rushes out of his room and shoots a web string at his backpack. "Yes, I remembered to floss today." "Bye, Mom. Love you," Izuku responds as he leaves his home on the way to Ua. "I still can't believe that I smashed the 100-pointer and scored 79 points from normal robots." Katsuki must be so pissed off to know that Deku not only beat him, but also destroyed the old record by 50 points. Izuku thinks as he jumps to school. It's a good thing that Izuku's naturally enhanced agility and strength aren't outlawed by the quirk laws. Permanent enhancements aren't banned from use. You're just fined more if you fuck up. Izuku arrives at Ua with 3 minutes to spare. And once he's inside the courtyard, he looks at the map on the wall to see where Class 1A is. He web swings to the other side of the building, since hero school students are allowed to use their quirks on school grounds, unless they get that privilege gets revoked by staff members. Izuku lands next to the window and begins to tap on the window lightly. A girl with purple hair looks up at the window and starts walking towards it. She unlocks the window and Izuku climbs in while thanking the girl. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you." Izuku introduces himself while sticking out his hand for a handshake. "My name is Kyoka Gyro. Nice entrance," she replies while shaking his hand. But when she tries to let go, she finds out her hand is stuck. "Oops, I forgot to turn off my stickiness," Izuku says while blushing in embarrassment. "Is that your quirk, sticking to stuff?" Kyoka says while chuckling. "No, I have the powers of a spider and a symbiote," Izuku answers. "What's a symbiote?" Kyoka questions. A symbiote is an organism that uses a host to survive. Sometimes it's mutually beneficial, and sometimes it's parasitic, and the symbiote is a major problem for the host. "Fortunately, mine is mostly the former," Izuku explains, accidentally slipping into mumble talk. Thanks to her good hearing, Kyoka heard every word. Fumikage also heard this and starts speaking. So, somebody else can understand the struggle of living with another entity inside of them. Dark Shadow also causes me problems. His will and my own clash more often than not. Only my willpower keeps him from rampaging. Fumikage exposits. Have you ever tried to sit down with Dark Shadow and talk this shit out? Izuku queries. In absolute darkness, he can't be controlled, and he can't be reasoned with. Bargaining with it isn't an option. Then don't bargain with the rampaging beast. Teach the docile version how to control itself. If it learns to stay docile while powerful, you'll become an unstoppable god of the night. Izuku replies, his knowledge of quirks coming in handy for once. It identifies as a he. Thank you very much, Dark Shadow replies after being manifested. Sorry, I didn't know darkness could have a gender, Izuku apologizes, before allowing Salvation to manifest half of a mask on the left half of his face. Slayer 76. It's the same one from before. So, what's your partner like? Salvation shoots a question at Dark Shadow. He's a total stick in the mud, doesn't even try to get a girlfriend. Dark Shadow responds, sending Kyoka into a quiet giggle fit. Same here, Salvation replies. Girls look at my powers, and all they see is a giant spider in human skin. Girls look at me and see a talking bird. Nothing I do is going to help me find a girlfriend. By this point, Kyoka couldn't contain her laughter anymore. I'll kill yours if you kill mine, Izuku declares. Deal. But only if we kill the sun first, Fumikage replies. Why the sun? It annoys me. Fine. But the moon goes next. Why the moon? It mocks me by being out of my reach forever. Deal. You hear that, Salvation? Your days are numbered. This discussion gets disrupted by the classroom door opening to reveal a giant caterpillar. Giant caterpillar, one of the female students yelled. I'm your teacher, Shota Aizawa, the caterpillar says. Talking caterpillar, the same female yells. A second glace later, and they realized that it was a sleeping bag, and the face staring at them looked completely unamused. Caterpillars don't talk. You people aren't very rational, Shota says as he stands up and unzips the bag. Put on your gym clothes and meet me outside. We're taking let's call it a pre-test. But what about the opening ceremonies? Ochako asks. We don't have time to waste on frivolous things like opening ceremonies. As students in the hero course, you only have 3 years to learn how to save lives. We're going to push you to your limits, and then make you shatter those limits. This is plus ultra, Aizawa states. 8 minutes later. It took 8 minutes for you guys to get out here. We'll get that down to 4 before the week ends. Anyways, we're going to do a little test. As kids, you all had to do standard exercises such as the ball throw and 50-meter dash. But the government made you do it without your quirks to keep up the illusion that all men are created equal by not letting people with power excel. Maybe one day the Ministry of Education will learn Midoriya. How far could you throw in elementary school? Aizawa asks. Izuku takes a few seconds to remember, then answers. 171 meters. They made me hold back because my strength was always active. Good, now take this ball, stand in the circle and throw it. Don't hold back this time, Aizawa instructs as he tosses the ball at Izuku. And this time, do it without shattering your arm. That was a one-time thing. I didn't have time to regulate the power flow because it was about to kill Ochako. Izuku claims as one for all's green energy, and his blue electricity dances across his arm. This is how Izuku plans to hide one for all, making it appear that the green energy is actually a unique type of electricity. This will theoretically make people less suspicious when Izuku stops using the blue electricity altogether. Izuku launches the ball into the sky, creating a shockwave that kicks up a cloud of dust. The other students are nearly knocked off their feet and Katsuki is pissed off. Bastard thinks he can be better than me. I'll just triple his score. The smoke clears and Aizawa is seen holding up the device that clearly displays 900 meters. What? A vertically challenged boy screams, "How are we supposed to beat that? If you think that is bad, just wait until you see my grip strength." Izuku smirks at the boy before his spider sense goes off. "We get to use our quirks as much as we want. This'll be fun," the girl with pink skin says cheerfully. "Fun, you say? The hero course isn't about fun. So let's make this less fun and games." New rule. The student who comes in last place during these 8 tests will be judged as a hopeless case with 0 potential and expelled from the hero course immediately. Aizawa announces. "That isn't fair," Ochako says, while silently hoping that she doesn't fail. Natural disasters, power-hungry villains, catastrophic events that wipe out entire cities, and people who won't let me nap aren't either. As heroes, it's our job to combat that unfairness." Aizawa retorts. The first test was the 50-meter dash. Ida was standing at the starting Tsuyu. Both of their quirks are perfect for this. Ida's quirk is speed-based, while Tsuyu's frog quirk lets her leap large distances in a single bound. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Tsuyu, 5.58 seconds. "Watching that girl made me really uncomfortable," Izuku whispers to Kyoka. This causes Kyoka to snicker. Kyoka goes next and gets 6.09 seconds. Izuku stops paying attention until it's his and Katsuki's turn. He puts both hands on the starting line and waits for the signal to go. Once that signal appears, Izuku sprints off, leaving a footprint in the starting line, while Katsuki uses explosions to create an afterburner. Izuku, 1.04 seconds. Katsuki, 4.13 seconds. Katsuki looks like he's about to explode. "That shitty Deku keeps getting in my way. I'll just show him that he'll always be under me. Just a pebble to be stepped on." The grip strength test is next, and only 2 people really stood out. Shoji Mizo and his quirk. Dupli arms, gaining a score of 540.0 kilograms by using his 6 arms to squeeze the device. Izuku decides to go all out and ends up crushing the device with his left hand. Aizawa just sighs, already regretting that he told Izuku not to hold back. Kyoka uses her earphone jacks to squeeze the device, getting a decent score of 150.5 kilograms. The rest of the tests get dominated by Izuku. Sit-ups, distance run, standing long jump, repeated side steps, and even the seated toe touch. "You're very flexible," Ochako says, causing Kyoka to chuckle and Izuku to blush. "All right, breaking everything down would take too long, so I'll just post the entire list," Aizawa announces. Izuku Midoriya, Momo, Shoto Todoroki, Ida Tenya, Katsuki Bakugo. Many names later. Minoru Mainta. Mainta collapses to the ground, wailing about how he didn't even get to see a pair of Bibis. By the way, nobody is expelled. That whole expulsion thing was a logical ruse to make you bring out the upper limits of your quirks, Aizawa says with the biggest shit-eating grin Izuku had ever seen. The entire class, except for Momo, Katsuki, Shoto, and Izuku, breathes a sigh of relief. On the way home. If he was lying this entire time, why did my spider sense tell me there was danger? Izuku thinks as he walks towards the gates. Wait up, Ida says as he slides to a stop. Izuku's expression darkens as he remembers what this guy was like during the entrance exam. What do you want? Izuku utters. I wanted to apologize for what I said during the entrance exams. I had no right to assume that you were a slacker or trying to sabotage Ochako, Ida said while bending at a 90 degrees angle. I accept your apology. Izuku walks away before being called to once again. How are you getting home? Kyoka asks after catching up to him. Ochako a couple seconds behind her. Web swinging. Now that we're officially enrolled in a hero school, we are considered heroes in training. This means that as long as we have our school ID on us, we're allowed to publicly use our quirks as long as we don't fight villains or hurt people. When we get our licenses, we'll be able to fight villains whenever we find them. Izuku answers. That's cool. I have to catch a train to get home, Kyoka replies, prompting Ochako to say the same thing. Rush hour starts soon. That train will be packed. Izuku speaks before making a decision. Both of you, hop on. I'll swing you home in half the time. How would you carry the two of us? We're about the same height, and you're barely taller than us, Kyoka questions. This causes Izuku to blush, since he's about to reveal a secret not even his mom knows about. I can stick you to any part of my body and support your body weight thanks to my quirk. I call hanging from his back. Ochako leaps onto Izuku's back and immediately sticks. A free ride isn't something she's willing to pass up, and she trusts Izuku to keep her safe. Where will I stick? Kyoka ponders before a smirk appears on her face. She grabs Izuku's arm and puts it behind her thighs before pushing herself up against his chest. Izuku immediately turns into a blushing and stuttering mess. Lucky Salvation whispers, which is mirrored by Mainta. Unknown to Izuku, this response sealed his fate. Shut up, pervert. Izuku yells as he shoots a web shot at Mainta's mouth before jumping into the air and attaching his web to a building. He swings forward and releases the web. He lets them fall for a couple seconds before swinging with another web to pick up speed. Warn me next time, Kyoka shrieks as Izuku flips in midair. What's wrong? Can't handle a little freefall? Izuku asks with a huge smile on his lips. Ochako screams before telling Izuku to make a left, then a right. 10 minutes later, Ochako is above her apartment building and tells Izuku to let her fall. Are you crazy? We're 50 feet in the air. Izuku yelled before Ochako reveals that she can make herself float before impacting the ground. Fine. But you better land without hurting yourself. Izuku relents as Ochako jumps off of his back. My house isn't too far from here, Kyoka informs Izuku as he shoots another web. Izuku gets a devious smile on his face as he lets go of his web and pretends to faint. Izuku, what's wrong? Wake up, Kyoka panics as the ground gets closer and closer. With Shota Aizawa. A logical ruse? That doesn't sound like the guy who expelled an entire class on day 1. All Might says. That class had zero potential as heroes, so I cut them loose. Mainta has potential, a small amount, but potential nonetheless. It'd be cruel to let a kid pursue a dream he has no hope of achieving. Aizawa retorts before yawning and crawling back into his sleeping bag. I blame you for this present, Mike. I can't believe you managed to push me into teaching again. Aizawa thinks as he closes his eyes. I guess I better go review my lesson plans for tomorrow. All Might sighs before walking up to his office. Free-falling pair. Wake up, Kyoka screams before shoving an earphone jack into his head and releasing a small sound wave. This causes Izuku's eyes to snap open, and he shoots a web to pull them over to a roof. Don't ever scare me like that again, Kyoka demands before Izuku drops to his knees and starts vomiting up lunch and pieces of salvation. There's even a piece of him stuck in the earphone jack. Gah, she hit my brain. Salvation screams as he recalls the pieces that were removed. The individual pieces begin to wriggle around before jumping towards each other. The one on Kyoka's ear draws blood before rejoining the rest and forming a blob with splotches of purple. That blob returns to Izuku's body to rejoin the rest of itself. Something doesn't feel right, Salvation uttered as the blob mingled with the rest of Salvation. You're overreacting, Izuku thinks as he finishes vomiting. What was that? Kyoka asks, worrying that she hurt her new friend. My symbiote has a huge weakness to sound attacks. Since it's inside of me at all times, I take damage whenever Salvation begins to violently wriggle around from sound. Izuku explains as he returns to his feet. This is why he never listens to dubstep at max volume. You should have told me that. I wouldn't have used it if I knew it would do damage. Kyoka says while Izuku regains his balance. He picks Kyoka up and swings her home. They land right next to her window, and Izuku pulls it open to slide her in. Izuku looks around to see a lot of dark colors and music-related items. "You really like music, don't you?" Izuku says as he spots her musical instruments. "Yeah, it's a family thing," Kyoka says as she twirls her earphone jacks around her finger. "You any good with that guitar?" Izuku questions. "Yes, I've been practicing since I was a little girl." "What about you? Any musical talents?" Kyoka asks her own question. "No, but I can dance," Izuku replies, revealing a secret that only his mom knew. He looks over to his left and sees a book with sheet music sticking out of it. "What's that book?" Izuku queried. "Oh, that's my songbook. I've been working on some original music. I could play something. I mean, if you want me to. You probably need to get home," Kyoka offered. Sure. Just let me tell my mom I'll be home later than expected," Izuku says as he texts his mom. While Izuku does this, Kyoka decides to play the bass instead of the drums. "You so much as roll your eyes or laugh, and I swear I'll murder you," Kyoka declares as she pulls him into her room. Izuku's blush appears full force. "I won't, I promise." Kyoka begins to play her guitar. "I will laugh, mother." "What?" Izuku thinks. This is for today, guys. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future adventures. Catch you in the next part.